All right. Okay, I think we will go ahead and get started. I know it's already a few minutes after 10, and we will likely have quite a few more people joining us today. So we'll get started so Sandy can get going in a few minutes. But good morning. My name is Karen Patterson, and I'm the Vice President of Humane Education and Volunteers at the Humane Society of Huron Valley. We are so excited to have so many of you joining us today for this wonderful presentation. A couple of quick housekeeping things. As a part of our presentation today, we will be holding a Q&A session at the end of the program. We do ask that your microphones stay on mute for the duration of the program and that all questions are held until the Q&A session. Due to the high number of attendees, when we are ready to take questions, we will be utilizing the raise your hand action if you would like to ask a question. If you need assistance with this, please feel free to connect with me using the chat. You can direct message me so nobody else sees and I can help you through that. As a gentle reminder and a courtesy to our attendees, our topic for today is deer-resistant gardening, so we do ask that all questions are directly related to this topic. We also ask that no recordings are taken today, and our presentation today is going to be done the way you see it on the screen, just to help anticipate what slides are coming next. So you'll see that view today. And then we are so happy to be welcoming Sandy back today for a second time. We first worked with her in 2015, and we are so pleased to have her join us again. Urban wildlife are a well-loved part of Ann Arbor and our surrounding cities and townships. Deer especially are admired by so many for their grace, beauty, and gentle nature. While we know that many people enjoy their presence, we also understand that living amongst wildlife can lead to some challenges and at times conflicts that require us to have patience and compassion and empathy. And we have found time and time again that education about the behavior of wildlife, as well as having resources to rely on when these conflicts arise, can really support a peaceful coexistence for all. Urban wildlife are a part of our community. They are our neighbors, and they have been here for many years and have watched their habitat change over time. Sandy is no stranger to living amongst urban wildlife, as you will hear. She's been through the trials and tribulations of building a beautiful garden while living amongst many species of wildlife, especially deer. Sandy's going to share her story with you, as well as a great amount of resources and experience and all that she has learned over the years. She's been instructing and consulting on deer-proofing gardens for almost 30 years now, and Sandy's professional and personal experience, along with ongoing research opportunities, keep her material very fresh and very current and up to date. She's co-authored several articles and authored the guidebook, How to Deer-Proof Your Garden in 5 Easy Steps. Sandy has presented many deer-proofing seminars, educational programs, and backyard consultations, of which we had the pleasure of taking part in that a few years ago. She is affectionately called the Deer Doctor, and we are just so happy to have her back for a second time, as she is such a great resource, as you will see, and just a wonderful person in general. So Sandy, thank you so much for being here, and I will pass everything over to you now.
Thank you, Karen. It's my pleasure to be back in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And perhaps some of you gardeners did attend our earlier workshop a few years ago. Lots of new material out there. And for those of you who weren't participating previously, there'll be even more new material. It's pretty exciting. A lot's going on all over the country, and a lot's going on right in Michigan, in the Ann Arbor area. So that's always fun for me. To be aware that I'm talking to people who actually are in the midst of all the exciting new things that are happening. So I'll start by telling you, as Karen said, I've had quite an experience here. One of the things that I've enjoyed living in a wooded area is to have woodland wildflower gardens. And I spent about 20 years getting permits to go where woods were getting bulldozed. And I would get permits to go there and dig the rare and endangered and protected woodland wildflowers because they were going to be bulldozed anyway. And I'd bring them back and plant them in my woodland gardens. And I was so happy and so excited to see my beautiful beds of trillium and wild geranium and May apples and all kinds of hepatica. Oh my, it was so, so beautiful. At the same time, I was president of a wildlife education organization. And we were actually putting on workshops. We were bringing in Dr. Paul Curtis from Cornell University and putting on workshops on deer proofing. So anyway, one morning I got up and I went out to admire my Trillium grandiflorum, the beautiful big white trillium that looked like lilies, and they were all mowed down. A bed of trillium that would be probably a minimum of $2,000 to replace, but they were all free. I got them from woods that I had dug from. And that was when I realized that what we were teaching wasn't quite enough. Paul Curtis was an expert and is an expert in many areas, including farmlands and deer proofing for farmers and agricultural purposes. But we needed to get more specific about home gardens. And that's how I began researching what to do in your home garden. That's what I'll share with you today. So we did figure it out, but my trillium, of course, will never come back. I lost them. So that was really, really sad. And at that time you couldn't buy them, but now you can. Oh, and the other thing we did was when I would dig these woodland wildflowers, I would donate huge carloads of them to the Helmer Nature Center, and we would have a fundraising event and raise a lot of money for our local nature center because again, you couldn't buy these plants then. Today you can buy them, but let me talk more about what you might have in your garden. So the program today is about I call it 5 easy steps. The first step is to learn, and this is the most important thing, and I'm glad you're here right now for this. When you learn about deer behavior, that demystifies the process, and that'll help you to understand why some things work sometimes, but not always. So for example, you might have a neighbor who hung a bar of Dove soap on one of their branches of a bush, and the deer never went back to the neighbor's yard. And so you hang a bar of Dove soap and the deer come and eat the branch it's hanging on. Well, when you learn about deer behavior, you're going to learn why that worked for your neighbor and why it didn't work for you. So we'll talk about deer. We'll start with talking about deer characteristics and behavior. Then we'll talk about selection of plants, choosing plants that deer don't eat. And luckily for you, Michigan State University has a fabulous list of plants, and we'll be giving you the link and the information for that. And I'll show you slides of some of my favorites, some things, most of which I grow myself. Most of these photos are from my own garden. So we'll talk about plant materials. The next thing we'll talk about is deterrents and repellents and why some things work and others don't. Most of the repellents that you can buy right now on the market don't work. So we have to talk about that, and you have to learn why some work and why some don't, so that you don't spend your money and your time buying a deterrent and buying a repellent, that's ineffective, because that's so frustrating when you spend your time, spend your money, and lose your favorite plants on top of it all. I hear that so often. I've presented this to thousands of people, and that's the biggest issue people have. So after we talk about deterrents and repellents, we'll talk about fencing, why some fencing techniques work, why some don't, and what you can do if you want to go for fencing. And then the last thing we'll talk about is just landscape design and how you can landscape design your property so that it will be deer proof. And it's up to you to decide when this is all over, when you put together your landscape design, which of these techniques you would like to use in your own property. Some people want no fences at all. If that's where you want to go, we can accomplish that. Or if fencing is okay, you can do that too. So let's get started. For starters, I'm going to show you some slides, and I'm sorry about the slides on the side. It's the first time I've used my PowerPoint, so it's just going to help me to stay focused and be able to do what we want to accomplish. This is a photo of some deer that was taken right here in my town, Arundequoit, New York. You can see the doe is licking a cat. And I always like to suggest that on that fence behind them is another cat who's jealous. Well, it's not. It's just an old post. But anyway, deer and cat have a wonderful relationship. It's pretty cute the way they get along. And you'll see lots of times any hooved animals get along well with cats, it seems. You'll see often photos of horses and cats and so on. So let's talk about Characteristics and behavior of deer. The first thing you need to know is they're neophobic. They're easily frightened because they are a prey species. So many of the things that are used to deter deer from your garden are based on the fact that deer are easily frightened. So I'm going to show you a photo now of a coyote chasing a deer. This is probably the biggest concern that a deer has, is that a coyote is going to chase it and get it. And sometimes it can be a standoff and the deer can survive, but not likely. Deer are familial. They live in family units. The females stay together. If there is a baby, if there's a baby and it's a male, he's allowed to stay with the girls until he's about 1 year old. And then he's kicked out, or maybe he just goes on his own. And off he goes. And the rest of the family unit stays together. So the photo that you're looking at now is a photo of a family of female deer. Here's another photo. And you can see that the mothers and the babies all stay together and the sisters stay together. So there are aunts together and so on. So let's say a hunter were to kill one of the doe, one of the mother doe, one of the doe. Most often her sister will adopt the baby. So if you've ever noticed that there was a doe in your yard and she had 2 babies, but all of a sudden she has 3 babies, you wonder, where did that baby come from? It's already several weeks old. That's probably most likely what happened. So they stay in family units. They have heightened senses. One of the things that's different about deer than humans is their senses. So here's a picture of a doe that was taken at night. They can see 18 times better than a human. That's a lot. 18 times better than a human. And so they see at night. And of course, we wouldn't be able to see. They have heightened sense of smell. You can see here's a buck smelling, actually trying to decide what it is that he's smelling and where it's coming from. They also have heightened sense of hearing. So they're hypersensitive, very sensitive. Oh, let me go back just for a moment. I'll mention on their vision that even though their vision is 18 times better than a human vision, the one thing that is deficient is depth perception. And so we are assuming that that could explain why so often there will be deer vehicle collisions. You wonder, well, why didn't the deer see the vehicle? Probably did, but had no idea what the distance was between itself and the vehicle. So that's one of the issues that comes up. But in any event, so they have heightened senses. So now that you have a little idea, so let me just go back again. No, we'll keep going. Okay, let's talk about deerscaping. Plants that deer don't like. Most of the plants that deer don't like are toxic. They actually have toxins. Some simply taste nasty, and others have a texture that's terribly unpleasant. So those are the reasons they choose not to eat certain plants. And when I say some plants are toxic, a good example of that would be daffodils, narcissus. Those contain a toxin that's poisonous, not just to deer, but to pretty much many animals. Now, you might go out in your garden, you might plant some narcissus and say, oh, it looks like deer browse right on my narcissus here. How did that happen on my daffodils? Well, first of all, a fawn will try munching anything, kind of like a human baby. You know, we have special safety caps on bottles of bleach. And you would think, well, what kind of baby would want to drink a bottle of bleach? Yet we have to have safety caps, don't we? So with deer, a baby is going to try all kinds of things and they'll get very sick and they won't eat them again. But if a deer was starving, which by the way, the healthiest deer in the world live in suburbs of Northeast United States, where you live. Those are healthy deer. Those are not starving animals. You probably noticed that. They don't look like they're starving. They're not. So that said, they're not probably going to eat any of your daffodils, no matter what. But if they do munch a little bit, they'll have to offset that with many other plants and with a varied diet. But no, they usually won't touch them. They've never touched any of mine. So we'll just take another quick look at a few different daffodils here. And one of the things that's really wonderful in the spring is, I know we all miss tulips, and we can't have tulips if we fence them in or if we use a deterrent or repellent. But now the daffodils are coming in lots of other colors. So you can capture some of the colors that you might have missed with your tulip collection. And here's a nice slide showing the good range and variety of colors available for your spring daffodils. The next thing I want to show you, and these are from my garden, I have a very extensive collection of hellebores. And these come in a variety of colors also. They're perennial. You don't have to do anything to these. They just grow and they're happy and they come up every year. They have spectacular colors and oh my goodness, they're so beautiful. I have people come just to see these. They come to see my garden because these hellebores are so beautiful. And some of the varieties will bloom very early. The one that's called Christmas rose will actually start blooming at Christmas time as part of I have a little winter blooming garden, which is pretty fun because like you, we're a 6A zone and a 6A, Rochester 6A and 6B. So I can grow, and you could too, you can have a winter blooming garden. So again, these are a few more of the hellebore. You can see just wonderful colors. There's a double. Now, another kind of plant that that I love are buttercups. I'll show you a slide. And later I can actually show you, even though I'm over in the corner, I can show you. Here are some, these are also buttercups, the ranunculus, and I'll show you some pictures of them. These can be grown here, but you have to dig the bulbs out. You can't leave them out for the winter, but they can be grown here. I haven't grown them yet. I'm ordering my first ranunculus bulbs actually pretty soon. So these are ranunculus. Look at these gorgeous colors. Aren't they beautiful? They're one of my favorite flowers. I just love them. So gorgeous. Another thing that I do grow here is digitalis, foxglove. The deer don't like these. They're toxin. These are all toxic plants that I'm showing you right now that deer won't eat. There's a close-up of digitalis. It's so beautiful. They're huge, stunning, stunning plants to have in your garden. Morning glory is another thing they don't like because they're toxic. That's why. And here's an application of morning glories. It's so pretty, so pretty. And I'm just going to show you a few of my woodland wildflowers. I didn't take a lot of pictures, but these are some of the things that I grow that are the woodland wildflowers. Here are Virginia bluebells. Again, the deer don't eat these, and they grow. They're perennials. They come up in the shade every year. Jack in the pulpits, so pretty. Here's my mayapple. And mayapple is pretty fun because where the flower is, an apple will grow, a little apple. You can actually eat them. So make a note of this plant because if you're ever in the woods and you run out of food, you can eat mayapples, the little apples. They're bitter, but hey, if you're really hungry, they're edible and you can enjoy them. And here we have spring beauty. That's one of the early things to bloom. These are all perennials and all from my woodland wildflower garden. So those are just a few of the plants. Now I want to show you, and I will, Karen has this link so she can put this up for you too. I think I can take you to it. Yeah, this is from the University of, Michigan State University. This is an article listing plants that are really damaged. And this is for your area, and some that are occasionally damaged and some that are seldom damaged. And then these are some that are frequently damaged. So that would be a good thing for you to refer to later on. And again, Karen will have that probably available for you to look that up.
Yeah, so, and Sandy, I'll interrupt real quickly. I'm actually, we will send a follow-up email to everybody, so we'll include those links in there.
Okay, great, great. So it's not going to be 100% because, as I said, babies will try anything, just like a human baby would. And so you could have a little deer damage on something that they normally don't eat, or there could be a deer that will eat something that other deer would never eat. And I've actually seen that. I've seen where there'd be one bush damaged in a hedgerow of, actually it was the full length of a street, separating backyards, and one deer ate one forsythia bush no one knows why. Sometimes you just don't know, you just can't figure out what's going on or why. So next I want to talk about repellents and deterrents. And repellents, a lot is going on with repellents. And I'm going to show you a quick little video here of deer munching at night. And this is, you can see that some of those plants are not being munched, others are being munched. And this was just from trials actually in Michigan. This was taken out in Michigan during one of their studies. We're just about done with that. Okay. Whoops, sorry. Now I want to show you, there are some repellents, as they said, that are effective. Deer stopper, excuse me, is very effective. Here's liquid fence. Liquid fence is probably, well, it's maybe my favorite. I really, this is an awesome product. I was involved in the trials of liquid fence before it was on the market. Sometimes they will do that. They'll send me trials and I'll have a master gardener here do a study, we'll put something together. So we were involved in the original trials of liquid fence. And this is effective for all kinds of, keeping all kinds of animals out. And in this product, one of the gardeners who was president of her garden club and a master gardener, she circled her whole garden with liquid fence. And she said what she didn't realize was there was a bunny rabbit inside the garden when she circled it. And so the bunny just decided that would be a good place to live. And so she had a lot of damage inside that garden because as soon as the bunny munched in something that had liquid fence, it didn't want to go any further. It kept going back into the garden. So you do want to be sure you don't have any little or big critters inside your garden when you do that. And I want to quote Dr. Paul Curtis from Cornell University. He's been fabulous. He said, egg-based repellents tend to work longer if there's sufficient concentration of egg in the mix. At least 10% is better. He's tested deer stopper from New Jersey a few years ago. It contained egg and thyram at the time, and that was a good deer repellent. Now, he mentioned that because he has stressed to me over the years that they've learned that egg-based repellents are the most effective. And I'll be giving you a recipe in a few minutes of egg-based repellents that you can make at home if you want to. So I'm going to show you now a little bit more information about some trials. This is a trial with Deer Pro. Deer Pro is a professional product that you can't buy in the store, but you can see on the top slides the untreated control, and on the lower slides, Deer Pro treated. And this was in the winter. And you can see the difference in the damage. Here's another slide. Again, this is a field trials from Michigan State with Deer Pro Winter, deer-free winter armor, and an untreated control. And you can see the different trials and the effects that it has. When it's not treated, these bushes are decimated. So next, I want to teach you something really exciting for those of you who would be interested in having your property protected, just like you would hire a lawn care company. Deer Pro, which is a professional product, is available through Mike. It's called Mike's Tree Surgeons. And I think there's a link here, and I think I can even take you to it. Let's see. I can take you to that link for a minute. That's right near you in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And this is the company, Save a Tree. And they will, you can hire them to come in and protect your property, and they'll spray it between 1 and 4 times a year. And then you don't have to do anything. So that makes it really easy. And that's extremely effective. That's an amazing product. Now here's a recipe. Again, I'm going to show it to you, but Karen will give you the link. How to make and use your own deer repellent. There are many different. This is Bob Villa. I always like Bob Villa. There are many different recipes you can use, and I want to stress that you want to be sure you use the ingredients. Anything you use should have eggs in it. Other things that are effective are mint, hot pepper, and garlic. Those are the key ingredients. So egg, mint, peppermint or mint, garlic, and hot pepper. Oh, and while I think of that, if you have a problem with your deer feeder and your bird feeder and deer getting into your bird feeder, you can put hot cayenne pepper in with your bird seed, and the birds don't mind it at all, and the deer will stop eating your bird seed. So that's something you can do that would be a little off subject, but still good to know. Okay, so now one of the things that I want to talk about for a deterrence, we've talked about repellents. I want to talk about deterrence. There's so many things you can use for deterrence. For what I've learned is the most effective deterrent. It's called a motion activated scarecrow. I'm going to show you a little video here. Whoops, let's see. This is a young man showing how to put together. Just want to be sure that you hear your sound okay.
Today we're reviewing the context scarecrow. Okay, so this is a water shooting motion sensor. So if you have a garden or plants that you're trying to protect, this thing detects motion and will spit water. They got the instruction packet, it's like the top piece, the actual sensor, and then looks like the hose connection and an extra arm. So assembly is super simple. It screws together. You would stick this in the ground here, connect the hose here, detects the motion, and then this obviously sprays. There's a sensitivity adjustment here, and then underneath there's a 9-volt battery compartment. Come with a little sticker pack, and stick these all around this motion sensor to make it look like a scarecrow head. I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I stuck those stickers on. It's pretty intimidating. I don't know if this is for humans or for animals. I can't imagine that they would be scared of the stickers, but you never know. And so you can test this dry. They recommend testing it dry. You can hear that. So we're going to get this set up outside and do some testing. Okay, so now we're going to test it out and demonstrate how it works outside. Back a little bit further than you think and test it out. So I got it in the ground and I brought the sensitivity to about a 4. Now I'm going to walk in front of it dry and see if I can hear the click. So I heard the click there, but I was only about 5 feet in front of it. So I may have to bring it a little bit closer to the garden. So again, the sensitivity is on the back. Then there's a max and a minimum adjustment here. And so you can move these around, and so you can see it hits the stop. There's a dial up top for how much water you want it to spray. Okay, so here's the area that I'm trying to cover. You can see it's working for a human. I have the sensitivity at a 5. I'm still going to play around with it and get it adjusted just where I need it. I'll probably put my dogs in the torture chest. I'll throw a ball in there, have them chase it, and see if they get sprayed. And it'll show me. But it's going to work. And I'm going to do some more testing. But that's a quick review.
Okay, now here's a demonstration of the scarecrow being used. Here's what the box looks like. Scarecrow Company does not know that I am so enthusiastic about their products. This is your backyard, I can tell. Okay, now one more homeowner.
Hi everybody, this is going to be a follow-up video on the Scarecrow Motion Activated Sprinkler of Deterrent Against Wildlife. The raccoons. So I had this device now for probably a month or so, and I must say it's working great. I actually tried to capture some footage with a night vision trail cam that goes on whenever there's some motion sensitive, and then it starts recording. So it's trying to get that perfect shot of a raccoon just getting in the way of sprinkler and be hit by it, and he's going to be scared and run away. Fortunately, that didn't happen. I did get some footage of raccoons. Right there, you can see him, and he's actually staying away from the area of the veggie patch because he's already conditioned not to go there. So in previous nights, he must have had some contact with that sprinkler. There he is again, real quick. You can see on the right, the sprinkler is protecting the veggie patch. Just for fun, I just moved the camera everywhere to show other wildlife because I wanted to get an idea of what's happening at night. You can see there's a little red. And there's a little bird. So I must say all the holes in the veggie patch and actually in the yard have disappeared. So it's been a month, and it looks like, well, now the raccoon is going out for it to find grubs. So the one thing that I would say is it's a bit of a challenge if you have to hook it up to a hose 24/7 or at least over the night. So there is the chance that you're going to get a leak and then waste water. So there are other products on the market that actually have a water tank. And they're solar powered sprinklers, also motion activated. And they have a couple of gallons of water. That makes it much easier to move around, and you don't have that risk of a bursting hose. At the beginning, I had a light duty hose, and after a few days, it started leaking just right at the connection. So I replaced it with a Never King heavy duty hose, and since then it's been fine. But if I were to buy another one, I would probably get one with a water tank. The only problem with that one is it's really expensive. It's like $150, $170. This one, now the Scarecrow runs about $50, which is still pretty expensive. But considering that now I can actually have my veggies grow and I don't have to worry about the raccoons, it's worth it for me. It's worth it to the point that I'm going to get a second one, and when I install it, it really is fully protected. So let me know what you think. If you like this video, please comment and subscribe.
Okay, so you can see that the Scarecrow is a fabulous product. It's never fails. I've polled so many people and learned that everybody loves it. And it can be used not just for deer, but also raccoons, groundhogs, whatever. One home that I did a walkabout of the United States, one home that I did a walkabout was a $23 million home, and their koi pond, of course, was quite elaborate. And I recommended the Scarecrow to keep the blue heron out because they were having a problem with their beautiful koi being nabbed up by blue heron, and it worked. So that's a really effective deterrent. The next thing I wanted to talk about was fencing. Oh, by the way, there are many, many other deterrents that you could use. People sometimes will put pinwheels up or hang CD discs, or there are all kinds of things that would scare deer. But the problem is that if it's something that's designed to frighten deer, it's only going to be effective up to about usually 1 week. You have to change it. So even if you were to try, let's say have a radio in your garden and a motion activated radio, you would have to change the station once a week. So maybe opera 1 week, you might have country western 1 week, you might have rap 1 week, because if it's the same music over and over, they acclimate. So they're not frightened anymore. Again, it's based on they're neophobic. That's why it scared them in the first place. But the motion activated scarecrow, now that keeps working. They just don't want water dumped all over them, I guess, and the noise and the action. So as I said, there are many, many different products, and we can, during Q&A, we can talk about all kinds of things. So next I wanted to talk about fencing, and I'll show you just a quick video of a deer jumping a fence. And when you see this, you'll realize what the gold standard for the height of a fence that a deer cannot go over is 14 feet. If you think you're putting up a 6 foot or an 8 foot fence and that will keep the deer out, nah. If you own a nursery and you have, $4 million worth of product, you put up a 14-foot fence. So I want to show you this quick little video. You'll have to watch carefully because it happened so quickly, of a deer jumping over a fence. And you can see this is a very tall fence and deer acts like it's nothing. So here goes. So you can see 6, 8 foot fence, no big deal to a deer. And there is, however, the option of having a fence that's solid that you can't see through, that the deer can't see through. That fence could be 5 feet tall and the deer will not, probably most likely will not go over it. And there's a reason for that. What's on the other side? Again, going back to deer being neophobic, in their mind, there could be a coyote on the other side. So they're not going to jump over something and not know what's on the other side unless they're really in a desperate situation. So you can usually have a 5 foot fence, solid backyard fence around your garden. No problem. The deer will probably not go over it. It's not 100% sure, but they can physically, but mentally, they think it's not a good idea. So there are many, many things to consider when you think about fencing. I want to show you what a friend of mine did. He wanted to have a privacy hedge of arborvitae. And deer, of course, love arborvitae, but he wanted a privacy hedge and he wanted it to be arborvitae. So what he did was, I'm going to show you that next. He put in a hedge and then he built literally a cage around it. So as you're going to see here, it looks like he's probably went out and trimmed this hedge. He did not trim the hedge. The deer trimmed this hedge. And it looks, as I said, it looks like it's trimmed. It's because they eat everything that protrudes outside of the fence. Here's the post, and here you can see what he's using here. He has a green PVC coated wire garden fence, and it's along both sides, the ends, and it also is across the top, but you can't see it because the hedge has growing up. And it will continue to grow up. And if any of you have arborvitae, you know how deer love arborvitae. But here you can see up close, they've eaten everything that's sticking out. So it's kind of a nice way to have a beautiful privacy hedge that looks like you've spent a lot of time taking care of it and still enjoy seeing the deer in your garden. It's a wonderful solution. So there are many different ways you can use fencing. A single strand of used in some cases, many, many different things. And we can always talk again during Q&A more about some of these other options. But this is just to give you an idea of the caged in area, kind of a caged in area. Whoops, we don't have to do that one. Okay, so now I want to talk about deer resistant landscape designs. And here we have just slides of a few different designs that people have done. These are simply plants that deer don't like. And what you could do is, if you want to have something they love, you put it in the back. So you might have 3 feet of other plants and then put the plant that they like. And I've seen that done over and over, and it's very effective because they won't bother going there. And here we have a few different designs that people have done. They're, again, deer resistant plants that they just don't care for. So you can just go that route if you'd like to. Okay. So that's the overview. And I know you probably have a lot of questions. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Karen and we'll go with questions now. I'm going to stop the slideshow, although I could put this one up. Well, I will say thank you for being here today in case you don't stay for Q&A. And the idea is to empower you and inspire you so that you can deer-proof your garden and live peacefully with wildlife. So, okay, Karen.
Great. Thank you so much again, Sandy. That was great information. And again, if you did have a question, if you just want to use the raise your hand icon, it is down. You'll find it underneath reactions. And then it'll just say a little button that says raise hand, and I will call on you like I'm here today. So I appreciate your patience. So Jean, and once I call on you, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and jump in.
I guess I'm the Jean you want. Does what you say pertain to rabbits also?
In particular, was there something that you had in mind to keep rabbits out? Because you have to, fencing would be a little bit different. Obviously, you don't need a 14-foot fence, etc. So the if you're thinking about
the deer repellent, would that repel rabbits too?
Yes. If you're thinking of a repellent, liquid fence would work. Also, Deer Pro. I had mentioned Deer Pro, and you can hire that company. That product works on rabbits as well. So liquid fence works for rabbits. Deer Pro works for rabbits. One of the things that you can do, and I did this in my garden, I had some beautiful little French lettuces that I was growing, but I have also lots of bunny rabbits. And so what I did was I put a row of garlic next to outside of the lettuce, and then beyond that I put marigolds. And the new hybrid marigolds do not work, but any of the regular old-fashioned marigolds, and you can tell if they're the old ones by taking a leaf between your fingers. And if your fingers smell bad, the rabbits don't like it. Nobody likes the marigolds. So I had a row of marigolds and then a little row of garlic and then my French lettuce. And I had bunny rabbits sitting right outside the garden and not crossing over that marigold because they thought, oh, that is so disgusting. So yes, you can use the same techniques.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, Nona or Nana, I'm not sure. I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but it looks like you have a question as well.
Yeah, it's Nona. Thank you.
Thank you.
My husband and I are beekeepers, and I know a lot of the homemade deer repellent also repels the pollinators. So do you know if the off-the-shelf stuff is pollinator repellent as well?
You know, I can't answer that. That's a really good question. I will find out. I will research that and get back to Karen with that. So your concern is that it repels.
Yeah, we're planting for our pollinators. You know, everything we plant is out there for our bees and native pollinators. And like I said, a lot of the homemade stuff we tried the first year repelled the bees as well.
One of the things, a friend of mine who also is a beekeeper, he uses a motion sensor radio for the bears. And that's been very effective to keep the bears out because the bears want his honey, of course.
Sure. Yeah. I'm really glad we're not in bear country. That's a great.
You might be better off just going with the scarecrows or something like that.
Sure.
Pardon me?
Sure. Yeah. And
a motion sensor scarecrow.
Right. Yep. I didn't realize that they had the portable ones.
Yeah, but I have a heart, and that's a nice product.
That looks great. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions at this time? Amber.
Hi, I was curious if a narrow garden helps deer stay out? Because I can only put up like a 6-foot fence at maximum. So I was wondering if having it narrow or having things like sorry about the background noise, I have 3 kids. Having an arch or something would that inhibit them from jumping in, or?
I'm not sure I understand your question because the sound is a little bit off too.
Sorry. Hold on. I'll try unplugging my headphones. Is having like a 7-foot garden, I just 12 feet wide, is that going to inhibit them from jumping in because it's narrow?
Okay. Oh, great. That's a great question. If you use fencing that they can jump over, let's say you have a little 3-foot wire fence. If the area in which they would be jumping, the garden area, is too small that they think they might not be able to get back out, they will not go in. Now, this is a fine line, and you might have to play with this a little bit to decide exactly what's going to work for you. Usually, let me back up. They can't do a broad jump and a high jump in one maneuver. They can do one or the other. So they can do a high jump or they can do a broad jump, but they can't do both in one move. So if your fences were 3 feet tall and they were 5 feet apart, they wouldn't go over that. They wouldn't be able to go over that. Okay, they wouldn't even try that. But you're talking 12 feet, so they might go for that. They might. I can't promise you they won't.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Amber. Thank you, Sandy. Okay, it looks like Yvonne.
Yeah, I put a question in the chat I have a raised flower bed or several, and my question is, do you have to put the marigolds into the raised flower bed to deter the deer, or can I put the marigolds on the ground to be as effective?
I would probably put them in the raised bed. The idea of the marigolds is, and there are many other plants that are offensive to them. Marigolds being a popular one and easy one to work with. The idea is that they don't like the smell and they don't like the taste. And if they think that's what is being offered on your salad bar, then nah, they're not going to bother eating there. But that's why you would probably have to put them right in the bed, in the raised bed. I don't know if that would even be enough of a deterrent, unless because your raised bed is only going to be what, a couple of feet wide, maybe 3 feet wide. So it may or may not be enough. You might have to do more than that. You might have to use a repellent, and you might, and/or a deterrent, and/or fencing, or cage. I've also caged in things. I cage in some of my planters. We build a little cage out of that same wire fencing with sides and a top, and just set it over the top of it. So you could do that.
Are there other plants that you suggest, maybe higher ones? Because even though marigolds look really pretty, I also think they smell terrible.
Yeah, garlic. Deer don't like, if you want something that gets tall, garlic, of course, with garlic scapes. That would be another thing that they find very disgusting in terms of edibles, and they don't like pretty much any herbs. They don't like lavender. They don't like mint. Almost any herbs they don't care for.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a question from the chat, Sandy from Carol. She is wondering, in the links that we're going to provide, will there be some information about shrubs that deer do not like also?
Those are listed in the Michigan State University list.
Wonderful. Okay, great. And then one more quick question from Carol. She's curious about woodchucks. Is there anything you can do to deter woodchucks? She mentioned specifically digging under her neighbor's house, but anything specifically that you know of about woodchucks?
Sure. Well, woodchucks always have at least 2 entrances to their home, and you would never want to block both entrances because you could block them in, and that's not at all a good idea, of course. So in order to deter woodchucks, and this, by the way, is effective for pretty much any wildlife, but in woodchucks, I'll tell you exactly how to do it. Get a little piece of 2x4 lumber, and you get an old rag that you don't want, and you soak that rag in ammonia. And then you take the rag and put it on the end of that 2x4, and you put it down only one hole, one of the woodchuck hole. And what happens is the odor is so disgusting to pretty much any wildlife, but we're talking about specifically woodchucks. They will move just because they think it's a lousy neighborhood. So they will pack up and move out just so they don't have to smell it. But be really careful again that you don't block more than one of their holes. They need an escape and they'll move away.
Great. That's really good.
And while we're on the subject of other wildlife, let me mention the Humane Society of the United States in Washington does have an excellent book that they've put out, and they also have an excellent website, and it would be under the subject of wild neighbors, and they cover what to do with all kinds of wildlife and how to deal with them. So that's a great resource. I'll send that to you, Karen, so you'll have it to send out to everyone.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we have that book as well too at the shelter. Good. So if anyone's local and would like to check it out, let me know. Great. We also have on our website too, at hshb.org, we have some wildlife resources as well too for deterrence.
Oh, great.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else have any questions for Sandy at all? I don't see any other hands raised at this time. I will take a moment and mention, I know we had some sort of technology glitch happening where people were not able to join the meeting for quite a while. I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but I apologize to those of you who are just now joining or just joined a few moments ago. We will be connecting with you to get those resources and talk about what you missed. And we sincerely apologize. We're not quite sure what happened, but we will connect with you regarding that. So, all right.
I'm trying to type really fast, but I can't. So I'm going to have to ask this. Okay. The woodchuck situation, they have a hole. I mean, they have things in my yard. Okay. And I don't really care. Okay. I don't care about them. They've been there for a long time. All right. But they try to dig a new hole, whatever, in under the neighbor's yard. We've tried all kinds of deterrents. So with those professional deterrents, the chemicals that the deterrents that she mentioned, if she sprays that around the house, do you think that will work? Because they're trying to dig under her house to make a new hole. They're not, it's not their existing hole, because I really don't care. They're on my property, but she is like getting completely crazy, and she'd rather kill them. So,
wow.
So I'm really trying to avoid that. So I don't know, will any of the deer products work on the woodchucks? Like the sprays or anything with the woodchucks?
Well, she could try liquid fence. She could try putting some liquid fence around, but I think she can't do her whole property with liquid fence. She can't.
Well, she can do around the house. She doesn't care about the rest of the property. It's her house. When they start digging under, trying to dig on, into her house.
Right. She could go around the perimeter with some liquid fence. That would be an option. She can give it a try.
Because I've bought her several products, and so far nothing has worked.
Yeah, see that, and I'm so glad you said that, Carol, because that's typical. And that's what I learn over and over is that gardeners try all these products and then they become frustrated because things don't work.
Yeah.
And lots of times when I give the workshop, this is the first time I've tried doing it virtually, so I can't really pull you in the same sense. But when I pull people, and I've pulled thousands of people, what I find is that some things just don't work at all, and people get so frustrated and they want to give up. And I understand that. So yeah, why don't you try liquid fence? And the other thing is, and again, Karen can help you with this. Take a look at what they have to suggest and what HSUS has to suggest about what to do about groundhogs, woodchucks. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Sandy, I apologize if this question came through and I missed it, but someone was asking in the chat if liquid fence has a noxious odor for people.
I think all of these repellents are a little bit obnoxious. I wear a mask if I'm applying anything myself, because I don't want it, even though I might not smell it. If I go to eat a sandwich later on, I might actually taste some rotten egg taste on my lips, which is so disgusting. So yeah, some of them have more odor than others. One of the things to absolutely avoid that has horrible odor is any of the predator urines. First of all, they're not effective. Predator urines are only effective up to 7 days, and then they don't work anymore. And second of all, how do you think that's gathered? That's not a humane process. But most importantly, it doesn't really work. And when I poll people, and this is kind of a fun story, I always say, has anybody ever tried predator urine? And one gentleman raised his hand. And I said, how did it work? And he said, oh, it worked all right. I said, well, tell us about it. He said, I sprayed my brick planter, which was a huge brick planter that had geraniums in it. And he said, the deer came up, they ate all my geraniums. And he said, it's a year later and my brick planter still stinks. So, so stay away from those predator urines. And there will be some odor to pretty much any of these, but those are the worst. Those are really bad. Okay.
Great, thank you. And I know another question just kind of popped in about the liquid fence. I think you mentioned you have to reapply every 7 days. And the question was if you have to reapply it as well after it rains. It sounds like you probably would.
Oh, liquid fence doesn't have to be applied every 7 days.
Okay.
Yeah, no. When you are using a deterrent that's designed to frighten them, you have to change it every 7 days because it takes them 7 days to acclimate typically. Okay. That's when you're using a deterrent. When you're using any kind of a repellent, they vary. So for example, Deer Pro, the one that's done professionally, that doesn't wash up in the rain. Some of them wash off more quickly than others. It depends on the ingredients in the product. When it rains on a consumer product, after it rains, you might have to reapply, okay?
Great, thank you. All right, any other questions at all for Sandy at this time? Now's your chance.
You're good?
I think, yeah, if you're having trouble using the raise your hand icon, please feel free to just unmute yourself and jump in if you would rather do that too at this point. Just wait another couple of seconds, make sure we're not missing anybody. Oh, I hear someone. Okay, maybe not. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody who has questions. You know, Sandy's such a great resource. I want to make sure you guys get a chance to talk with her more.
Someone just wrote in the chat about moles and voles.
Thank you. And I don't have any really good advice about those, I'm sorry to say. I looked it up recently myself, and I didn't think the resources were great either. One of the gardeners here in Arundecoit uses what kind of looks like a little windmill, and he felt it was very effective. I can't say for sure. I've never used them. I've never found research on them. It's just anecdotal. That's the best I can come up with.
I can share from personal experience, and again, there's no research behind what I'm about to say either. I have quite a few moles and voles in my yard, and I use the sound. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but they go into the ground. They're little stakes, and I had tremendous success with them last summer and fall and spring. It was literally a day or two after I put them in. I had no moles or voles the rest of the season. So, and I just got those on Amazon. I think something simple and easy, but again, there's no science behind that. It's just my own personal.
Do you know what they were called? Do you remember how they could order those? Or maybe you could send that out later.
Yeah, I did just find them on Amazon. There were a lot of different brands and types. Mine had yellow tops that went all the way into the ground. There's some I think that are above the ground. But yeah, I can try to find that and send it out. Yeah, and we do have I know there are some of you that are just joining late due to some technology issues we were having. We will be sending out a follow-up email. I know a lot of you had missed some information, so we do apologize for that.
It looks like Linda Brundage has a question.
I was just going to call on her. Thank you, Linda, and then Amelia also.
Yes, I wondered if you have any information or research on malganite.
Milorganite?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Milorganite, I know they have been making it as an organic fertilizer. And what's really cool about milorganite is the smell is a little unpleasant and animals don't like it. And so it's one of those products that you can use in your garden to deter animals because it smells unpleasant and at the same time fertilize your garden. It's made out of sludge from, I think, Milwaukee, and it is quite effective. And people have again, I don't have any actual research on it. I've not been able to find any research on it, but I know that everybody who's used it has told me they like it.
Thank you.
Oh, and I wouldn't put it on edibles because it's made from sludge.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good to know since I just ordered a bunch.
Oh, good. Good for you. That's great.
Great, thank you. And then Amelia, looks like you had your hand raised.
Hi, I just had a question about, my husband and I were talking about doing fishing line as the fencing. We saw some articles online that people use fishing line just connected across poles around their garden. And I was curious if you knew anything about that, if that was effective, or they would do it maybe like every 2 feet up 6 feet or so.
Yes. Okay, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. Actually, to the best of my knowledge, this was a design that was developed by a friend of mine. And she had an iris farm here in the Rochester area. And they strung fishing line about 3 feet on little posts about 3 feet up. And what happened is when the deer would bump into it, they wouldn't know what was going on. And so they stopped going into her iris gardens, and that was very effective. And I put that in my guidebook, which how to deer-proof your garden. And since then, lots of people have been recommending it. And you can use a single strand at about 3 feet, or if you want extra protection, you can continue and put another strand up at about wherever you want it, where it would hit the deer just in their chest, and then even a taller one if you want. And it basically is effective because it confuses deer. They don't see it, they don't understand it, they don't know what it is. Now, the trick with that is it has to be very secure. So you can't put it on a flimsy little post. It has to be very, very, it has to be taut, tight, and secure so that they don't just knock it over. So that, and the other thing, of course, is you don't see it there. And so you forget and you can trip over it yourself. So you need to also be aware of that. Okay. It's a great idea.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
You said that was fishing wire?
You can use fishing wire. You can use anything you want. Fishing wire is nice because it's fishing line is nice because it's pretty much invisible. But of course, that means you don't want to trip over it. But you can use twine. You can use whatever you want, but it's small, anything in a thin material that you can string from one post to the next and pull tightly.
Sandy, there was a question brought out about the fishing line potentially being harmful for birds. Can you speak to that at all?
That could happen. Chances of the bird flying into it are probably remote. At one point, we originally recommended using some very fine fencing, you know, that little small netting. But what we found was that birds and snakes and all kinds of things were getting caught in it. So we now recommend you don't use any of that. But I've not heard of any problems with deer with a single fishing line. I don't think that would happen that often, if ever.
Great, thank you. And Yvonne has a question.
I have raspberries, and I have noticed that all the birds around my area also like them. Yes. So I was wondering if you had a suggestion of how to protect them.
You know, I wish I did. That's one of the applications we used to recommend that netting for. But again, birds get caught in it, you know, other things get caught in it. So we don't recommend that anymore. I can't tell you the best solution to that. I think, again, if you check with HSUS with their wild neighbors, you might find something there. I don't remember seeing ever anything on that. I wish I had red raspberries, but hey, you have to share them maybe. You know, the Native Americans always planted 2 rows extra in their garden and said that was for the wildlife. And you might just have to take that position. I don't know. I hope not, but maybe you will. You might have to just say, okay, they can have some of them. Good luck.
Great, thank you, Sandy. Okay, any last questions at all? We still have a few more minutes if anybody wants to jump in. Let's see, it looks like there was a question about plants. Oh, so we did, yeah, so the question about if we did talk about plants that deer don't like, and yes, we did cover that in the first part of the presentation. We will be sending out information next week to catch everybody up who wasn't able to get into the meeting. And Nancy, hopefully that helps answer your question. And if not, please feel free to continue to direct message me. And then one question from Carolyn is, would the scarecrow help with birds, do you think, Sandy?
Yes, the scarecrow helps with everything, even humans. It keeps everything out of your garden. And the really nice thing about it is it's just water, pure water. So that when you apply it, when it goes off, all you're doing is watering your garden or your raspberry bushes or whatever it is you're protecting. Yeah, it's great.
Great, thank you. Another question regarding liquid fence is, how far out do you spray that?
How far out? You actually, the directions are in the package. Here's a little package. I have one here because I use them myself. And they recommend that you set it up and decide yourself where you want to cover, what's your coverage and what angle. You get to pick that, and you can do that once you have the scarecrow in your hands. You know, you really kind of need to be in the garden to really know that. I mean, I could give you estimates, but nah, you're better to just have it in your garden and see what works for you.
Great, thank you. Okay, I was just trying to see if there's any other questions coming through the chat at all. It doesn't look like it. All right, any other questions at all? Feel free to jump in.
Oh, liquid fence.
Let's see. The question was about liquid fence, not the scarecrow.
I'm not sure. What's the question?
I'm not sure either. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss something.
About 6 questions up, they were asking how far you have to spray the liquid fence from, I guess, what they're planting. So do you just put it around the perimeter? That's my assumption.
Oh, it would be, you would not put it on edibles, first of all, at all, because of the chemicals in it. And it just has to be outside of that garden area, directly outside. So if your garden, I'll use my hands. If this is your garden, you would apply it next to the garden, okay?
Thank you. Okay. Other questions at all? Okay, we'll give it just another few seconds here to see if anybody has any questions.
Question. This is Nona again.
Hi, beekeepers.
Yes. You had said that deer love arborvitae.
Yeah.
We were looking at getting some white cedar for the boundaries because it's really good for the bees. I suppose that's in the same family and it's just going to be a deer lunch.
You know, I would have to look it up. I would have to look and see because there's no rhyme nor reason about what they like and don't like. And I don't know if I can look it up that quickly, but it's on the list. It'll be on the Michigan State University list anyway. I don't know at what point. I can't answer your question without looking it up.
That's okay. I'll go check that list. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I can't find it that quickly.
Yeah, and it will come out in an email, but I also am just going to repost it again in the chat right now too. So feel free to use that link as well. Okay. All right, I don't see any other questions at this time. Guess one last call for questions. I don't want to miss anybody. And thank you again all for your patience today, those of you who experienced the technology issue. Looks like Carol, maybe are you jumping in?
No, I was going to say when everybody's gone, I just wanted to quick touch base with you about the city council thing.
Oh, perfect. Okay, yes, I am happy. If there's anybody on the call that wanted to talk about the city council meeting on Monday, I'm happy to stay on after we conclude the presentation. We just didn't want to have that dominate the talk today, and I wanted to, out of courtesy, stick to that topic during the presentation today. So thank you. Any other questions at all for Sandy?
Okay.
I don't think so, Sandy. This has been so wonderful. You are just such a huge wealth of knowledge and resources for us. We so appreciate you being here today. And I know I have learned even more the second time around. So I'm sure everyone joining in has learned as well too. So thank you very, very much for being here.
Well, thank you, Karen, for giving me the opportunity. I'm very excited. And as I said in the beginning, hopefully we have empowered people and inspired people so that Ann Arbor is going to have more beautiful gardens than ever.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure. You know, we would love to have you guys send us pictures. If you try anything or have any success, please send pictures or send me an email. We can share with the group over the next few months. We would love to hear, you know, some good success stories on some of these things. I know I'm going to be getting my parents a scarecrow after hearing you today and all the testimony, because they're kind of at their wits' end with their hostas and their tulips, everything that deer love, of course. And I try to teach them that too, but I think I'll help them out with that as well too. So, but okay, well, thank you everybody again so much for joining us, and thank you, Sandy. If you do want to stay on, you're welcome to. If you want to chat about the city council meeting on Monday, otherwise feel free to log off, and thank you guys all so very much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.